My mother didn't even say hello when she called. She just said, "Lena, we need to talk about tonight." I was standing in front of a 425-degree oven, sweat running down my spine, clinging to my collarbone, coating my eyelashes like ash. It was 4 p.m. on a Friday, the busiest hour at Copper Hearth Bakery in Portland, Oregon, and my mother was calling to tell me I wasn't welcome at my own sister's engagement dinner. She said, "Madison wants everything to be perfect tonight. Aesthetic, you know? And well, you always have that smell on you, that yeast smell. Your hands are always stained. You look common, Lena. It doesn't fit the Pacific Northwest luxury vibe she's curating." I stood there, gripping a tray of blistering hot sourdough, and felt my chest go hollow. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just said, "Okay," and I hung it up. I stood there long after the screen went dark, listening to the low industrial hum of the convection ovens, realizing something in me had gone very, very quiet. People think baking is romantic. They see slow-motion videos of flour drifting through sunlight and dough rising gently on marble counters, and they think it's soft. It isn't. It's burns on your forearms, shaped like continents that don't exist. It's waking up at 2:30 in the morning, when the rest of the city is still asleep, just to make sure the croissant butter doesn't split. It's cracked knuckles, aching shoulders, and a kind of exhaustion that settles into your bones and never fully leaves. My sister, Madison, never knew that kind of tired. Madison was 27, a lifestyle content creator whose job was unboxing luxury skincare and filming her morning routines in perfect diffused light. My parents called her the Golden Girl. They glowed when she showed them her engagement ring, a 4-carat emerald-cut diamond that cost more than my entire culinary education. They bragged about her at wine tastings and private clubs. What they never mentioned, what they carefully avoided saying out loud, was who actually funded that life. For 5 years, I had been the invisible wallet of the family. When my father, Richard, made reckless investments and lost a chunk of his retirement, I wired $6,000 a month to keep their townhouse heated. When Madison needed a new camera because the old one wasn't cinematic enough, I paid for it. When my mother, Elaine, decided she needed a kitchen remodel to match her friends, I covered the deposit. I told myself I was helping them. I told myself that because I worked in the back of the house, because I was the one covered in flour and heat and sweat, it was my responsibility to make sure they looked polished in the front. But at afternoon, leaning against a stainless steel prep counter, something clicked into place with frightening clarity. There's a sociological concept called the service paradox. People love the product, but they resent the producer. My family loved the bread I made. They loved the money it brought in. They loved the image of artisan food without ever respecting the labor behind it. They didn't see me as a daughter or a sister. They saw me as infrastructure. I was the generator in the basement, necessary, useful, but deeply embarrassing if guests ever saw it. I tried to feel sad, I really did, but all I felt was cold understanding. This wasn't a family dynamic anymore, it was a transaction, and the contract had just expired. The next morning, the bell above the bakery door rattled violently, not the gentle chime of a regular grabbing a morning bun. This was the aggressive, entitled jangle of people who believe the space belongs to them. I looked up from the dough sheeter, my hands sunk into cool, laminated butter, and saw my parents and Madison storming inside. They didn't look remorseful. They didn't look apologetic. They looked panicked. "Lena, thank God," my mother said, clutching her designer bag like a lifeline. "We have a situation." She didn't apologize for uninviting me less than 24 hours earlier. She didn't acknowledge what she'd said. She walked straight past the counter and into the kitchen, her heels clicking sharply against the tile. Madison followed, immaculate in an ivory knit set, walking directly to the glass pastry case. She didn't look at the desserts. She looked at herself. She adjusted her hair, checking her reflection. "The caterer canceled. Family emergency. Completely unprofessional." She turned slightly. so you'll fix it." I wiped my hands on a towel. "What fix?" I asked. "The desserts," she snapped, finally looking at me. "We need 6 dozen of your midnight cruffins with the gold dust and a 3-tiered vanilla bean cake with raspberry compote, delivered by 4. I glanced at the clock. It was 10 a.m. They wanted a 3-day process done in 6 hours. And judging by the way my father was inspecting my equipment without meeting my eyes, they expected it for free. They weren't asking a professional, they were commanding a servant. My father stepped forward, trying to sound authoritative. "It's for your sister. We need to make the right impression. Evan's investors will be there. We need the best," he said. I looked at Madison again. She was already back to studying her reflection in the glass, smoothing the fabric at her waist, and that's when I saw it clearly. There's a psychological distinction called the mirror versus the window. When Madison looked at people, she used them as mirrors. She only cared about what they reflected back to her. Did they make her look successful? Did they make her look desirable? Did they improve the image she was selling? She didn't actually see me standing there. She just saw a solution to a crack in her reflection. But I used my craft as a window. I poured myself into this bakery to connect with people, to feed them, to offer something honest. I looked outward, she looked inward. We weren't just different sisters, we were different species. "I can't do it," I said. The silence in the kitchen was immediate and total. My mother mouth opened. "What do you mean you can't make them? You have flour right there, just make them." "I can't make them," I repeated, my voice even. "The dough for the cruffins needs 48 hours to rest. The cake layers need time to cool. It's physically impossible." "You're being selfish," Madison hissed, her face twisting. "You're punishing me because Mom uninvited me. God, you're so petty. It's my engagement, Lena. You're going to ruin everything just because your feelings are hurt." "I'm not being petty," I said. "I'm being a baker. Physics doesn't care about your engagement party." My father slammed his hand on the prep table, making a bowl of setting glaze jump. "Enough. You will figure this out. I don't care if you buy something from somewhere else and repackage it. You will fix this, or help me." The bell above the door chimed again, but this time it wasn't frantic. It was confident, heavy, the kind of entrance that changes the air in the room. My family froze, turning instantly toward the front, rearranging their faces into polite masks. Standing in the doorway was a man in a charcoal suit that cost more than my entire delivery van. He was tall, silver threading through his dark hair, his eyes sharp and assessing. It was Carter Hale, the hotel magnate Madison was engaged to. Madison let out a breathless squeal and rushed forward. "Carter, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to see me before tonight." She lifted her arms, angling for a perfect embrace. He didn't stop. He didn't hug her. He didn't even look at her. He stepped around her effortlessly, walked past my parents, past the pastry case, and straight to the counter where I stood. He looked at me. Not my apron, not the flour on my hands. He looked me in the eyes with a respect I had never once received from my own family. "Are you Lena Porter?" he asked. I nodded, momentarily stunned. He exhaled, the sound full of relief. "I've been trying to meet you for 6 months. I'm Carter. I own the Northline Hotel Group. We stock your bread in every executive suite. Your rye is the reason our Seattle property finally earned a 5-star breakfast rating." My mother made a strangled sound. My father went rigid. Madison stood frozen, one arm still half raised. You know her?" she asked, her voice trembling. Carter turned slowly, as if he'd forgotten she was there. "Know her? This woman is exceptional. I told you I only agreed to meet your family because I recognized the last name and hoped you were related to the owner of Copper Hearth." The air drained from the room. Carter turned back to me, confusion creasing his brow. "I sent you 5 emails. My team sent partnership proposals." "We wanted to open a flagship bakery inside our new Chicago hotel. We assumed you weren't interested." I frowned. I never saw any emails. I check my inbox every night. Carter pulled out his phone and showed me the thread. The messages were there, but the reply address wasn't mine. It was forwarded. I recognized it immediately. It was my father's email. I looked up at him. He had gone pale, sweat beading at his hairline. Carter followed my gaze, his expression sharpening as the truth clicked into place. "He intercepted them," I said quietly. "Dad still has server access from when he helped set up the domain." My father stammered, backing toward the mixer. I was protecting you, Lena. You're not ready for that pressure. Chicago was too big. We need you here. Who would help your mother? Who would take care of Madison? I was just trying to keep the family together." Carter let out a short, humorless laugh. "You blocked a multi-million-dollar partnership so she could run errands?" Madison rushed forward, grabbing his arm. "Carter, it doesn't matter. It was a misunderstanding. We're here now. Lena can bake for tonight, and we'll talk business later. Family first, right?" Carter looked down at her hand like it didn't belong there. He looked at my parents, shrinking in the corner, then back at me. "I don't think there will be any pastries," he said. "Actually," I said calmly, "there's something you should know about the pastries." My mother's eyes lit up. "You saved some?" "No," I said, "I didn't. See, the midnight cruffins sell out 3 months in advance. There's a waiting list. And the batch I baked this morning, the ones you wanted? Where are they?" Madison demanded. "I already donated them." "Donated them?" she shrieked. "To who?" "To the women's shelter on 4th Avenue, I said. "I drop them off every Friday at 9 a.m. The cupboard is empty, Madison. There is nothing here for you. Not a crumb." Her face collapsed. The polished influencer mask finally cracked, revealing the frightened, entitled child underneath. She screamed. Not a word, just a raw, jagged sound, like a toddler denied a toy, only sharper. "You're jealous," she yelled, her face flushing an angry, blotchy red. "You've always been jealous of me. You're just a baker, Lena. You play with flour while I build a brand. You're sabotaging my happiness because you can't stand that I'm the one winning. You're ugly and bitter, and you're ruining my life." She was panting now, chest heaving. My parents rushed to her, murmuring comforts, shooting me looks filled with hatred. My mother hissed that I was cruel. My father stepped forward like he might physically force me back to the ovens. I looked at Carter. He stood very still, watching Madison unravel. His face was unreadable, carved from stone. He looked at the woman he planned to marry and saw the entitlement spilling out, the cruelty, the absence of grace. Then he looked at me, standing quietly in my flour-dusted apron. I said nothing. There's power in non-reaction. When someone is self-destructing, you don't interrupt them. You don't defend yourself. You let this silence amplify their chaos. I let the room ring with her words. I let the quiet stretch until it was heavy, unbearable. Then I moved. I reached behind my neck and untied my apron. The fabric whispered as I lifted it over my head. I didn't throw it. I folded it carefully on the stainless steel counter, edge to edge, square and precise, the discipline of the kitchen. I pulled a single silver key from my pocket, the spare to the back door, the one my father used whenever he needed something from me, and placed it on top of the folded apron. Click. Then I took out my phone. I opened my contacts. Mom, block. Dad, block. Madison, block. Slowly, deliberately, where they could see. "Lena, what are you doing?" my mother whispered as the color drained from her face. "I'm clocking out," I said. My voice was quiet, sharp enough to cut. I turned to my sous chef, Daniel, frozen by the prep table with a tray of cooling scones. "Daniel, you're in charge. Close early. Everyone gets paid for the full shift." "Yes, chef," he said, standing taller. I walked around the counter, past my father, who couldn't meet my eyes now that his leverage was gone, past my mother, trembling as she realized she'd lost her ATM and her target in the same breath, past Madison, sobbing into her hands, her engagement undone not by me, but by the truth. I stopped in front of Carter. "I'm getting coffee," I said. "You're welcome to join me." He didn't hesitate. He didn't look back. He turned away from the aesthetic, the performance, the entire circus. "After you," he said. We stepped out into the cold Portland street, snow drifting lightly. The bell chimed once behind us. Inside, the bakery smelled like burnt sugar and regret. Outside, the air was clean. I breathed it in, and for the first time in 5 years, felt light. The fallout was spectacular and quiet. No police, no screaming in the streets, just consequences arriving on schedule. Carter ended the engagement that night by text, not cruelly, decisively. He cited a fundamental incompatibility of values. Madison tried to spin it online, posting tearful videos about betrayal and jealousy, but without Carter's money or access, the content dried up. The venue sued for cancellation fees. The lifestyle she sold collapsed because it had been built on a foundation I was paying for. My parents were left with a leased townhouse they couldn't afford. When my transfer stopped, the heat went off in February. They downsized to a condo miles from the image they chased. Messages came through relatives about forgiveness and family unity. I never replied. I'd already said everything when I put the key on the counter. 1 year later, I stood in front of a glass storefront in Chicago. The sign above read "Copper Hearth" in elegant gold lettering. Carter stood beside me with ribbon-cutting scissors. We weren't a couple. We were partners. He respected my craft. I respected his vision. I looked at my team, paid double industry standard, at the regulars who flew in for opening day, at the women from the shelter now supported by a percentage of our profits. This was my family. This was the table I built. I lifted a warm croissant, flaky and perfect, and took a bite. It tasted like freedom. If you're the one keeping the lights on for people who would leave you in the dark, hear me. They will never hand you the switch. You have to turn it off yourself. It'll be dark for a moment, but then you'll finally see the stars. Most people scroll past stories like this. The ones who subscribe are the ones trying to change something inside themselves. If this made you stop scrolling, subscribe and share this with someone who needs it.